used to talking into a microphone, so bear with me here. Thank you so much for coming. You know who would have enjoyed seeing all of you the most? My dad. As we all know, my dad loved to be in community with people. Unfortunately, he's only able to join us in our hearts today. I'd like to share some thoughts with my dad about you, or about my dad with you. Since he passed, I think the description that I've heard the most from people is how generous my dad was. He opened his home and property to people from all walks of life, to those who needed a soft landing or just wanted to hang out with him and enjoy what he had created by the river. My dad had a lot of love and grace for whoever walked in the door, and there was never any judgment or strings attached. What was his was everyone else's. He especially enjoyed sharing his love of the river. He loved taking people out fishing or boating. And when Thanksgiving rolled around, my dad always made sure that there was a seat at our table for his friends and for mine. And my dad was a hell of a cook. I have great memories of us cooking together and going out for a big, fine meal, as he liked to say, after a day of fishing. I even remember a game we would play when I was younger where I would try and guess all the ingredients of what he made me. I'd like to just take this moment to thank all of you for loving and supporting my dad. He always felt your support. The way my dad talked about his friends and family taught me the importance of surrounding myself with good people. My dad held his family close to his heart. He loved calling his dad my grandpa during and after hockey and football games, especially if the Bills were playing. And this turned into quite the tradition among the three of us. And my dad loved getting on the phone to swap recipes with my grandma and telling her all about the gourmet meals he made. He and my grandma were never without a project when she came to visit. Of course, this meant that my grandpa was never without a project either. But my dad was so grateful for all that they did to help make our river house into a home. My dad also loved the connections he had with his brothers, my Uncle Mike and my Uncle Kevin. He always looked forward to any chance he got to see or hear from them. Dad was always driven by his curiosity about life, his adventurousness, and his love of nature. When he moved to Colorado 35 years ago, he lived and worked in Solitude Station at the top of Copper Mountain, which was only accessible by snowmobile. He used to tell me about he and my mom taking off in the snowmobile at night with a bottle of wine to enjoy the back bowls of Copper Mountain under the full moon. My dad always made sure to seek jobs that allowed him to sustain his love of nature. He was a backcountry ski guide, a ski instructor, he did ski patrol, he gave snowcat tours, and of course, he was a master fly fishing guide. My dad taught me everything I know about how to be in nature. How to fish, how to boat, how to ski. We backpacked and camped on numerous 14ers, and he always made sure I had all the gear I needed. He would often say, you know, we may not have a lot of money, but we sure do have a lot of gear. It makes me really happy to say that my dad just had his best year of fishing ever. This summer, in a heroic effort, he landed the biggest trout anyone has ever seen on the Upper Arkansas River. And you can see there's a little video of this at the end of this catch that Chris put together in this amazing slideshow for today. Many of you also know that I got Dad and his childhood best friend Andy to join me in Costa Rica for some fishing. Now this was a huge adventure. It was Dad's first time in a Spanish-speaking country, which turned out to be a lot more work for me than it was for him. It actually started with 5 really rotten days of fishing. We had blisters all over our hands and no fish. But by some miracle, my dad decided on the last day of the trip to find another fishing guide. He booked it just 12 hours before we went out the next morning. This became the fishing trip of a lifetime. Dad's day started by catching a 7-foot wahoo. That was the biggest fish in his life. And then he caught a sailfish, and that was the biggest fish in his life. And then he caught another sailfish, and that was the biggest fish in his life. We ended up hooking 8 sailfish and caught 5 of them. But just to set the record straight, I wound up catching the biggest fish that day. Ever since I was little, my dad always told my mom that someday he wanted to catch a fish that was bigger than me. He got close. However, the fish that I caught that day was bigger than my dad. And I know he wouldn't have wanted it any other way. He taught me everything I knew about fishing. And I know that final fish made him through the roof excited and so proud of me. I always knew he was proud of me. Again, thank you all for coming to celebrate my dad's life. And now I just want to open it up to anyone who wants to say anything. I would love to listen to everybody's stories all night long, but I'm sure a lot of people have stories, so if we can try and keep it to just a couple minutes, that would be great. Thank you.